Duncan, hello and welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure to be talking to you today about the book club and all things learning and development. So, as you know, actionable learning is at the core of what we do and who we are at Journey Further. From day one, books have been an integral part of how we make decisions and how we start initiatives and how we behave. So, I really want to sit down with you as you open up our US office to discuss learning and development and what that means to you, and to learn a little bit more about the books and the podcasts and the resources that have helped shape you. So, I wanted to kick off by asking if someone were to write a book about your career to date, what would you want that book to be called?
I would say if they were to write a book about my career in the last 6 months, Far From the Madding Crowd wouldn't be the worst title ever. I've left the big networks. I think it's just been an unbelievably refreshing sort of 4 or 5 weeks now. I've been working at Journey Further, and all the conversations I was having with Robin and Matt and co beforehand. It's great to really join somewhere with a much more independent and sort of empowered spirit about the place. I would say overall, maybe Great Expectations as a title. That book itself isn't exactly the story of my career, but I just think there's so much potential in delivering real kind of value to consumers from brands and really kind of engaging with them in positive ways. And that's something I think Journey Further is all about as well. So I think that notion of great expectations and what we can do with this industry is something quite apposite for me.
And two classics. What an answer! What a way to kick us off. Thank you. When it comes to learning and development, are you a big reader?
I am quite a big reader. I would say I used to be a much bigger reader before I had kids. Suddenly your time just diminishes unbelievably. But yeah, I do read quite a lot. I think well, you join work and you didn't really realize business books existed that much before you actually got into proper work. And I think, the industry that we're in, there's a lot of very inspirational books and sort of pieces of content and stuff out there. So I remember, first starting, and all the Malcolm Gladwell books and so on were things that everybody was reading. And I think those kind of titles are the ones that really inspired me early on. I'd say there are two in particular. There's Eating the Big Fish and The Pirate Inside by Adam Morgan, who really wrote about how to think differently and how to act differently, both as brands and in business, that just got me sort of thinking a bit differently, I guess, when I first started. It was in a big networked agency. It was quite independent at the time, 20 odd years ago. None of the agencies were very big, but they really kind of got you thinking that there was always a different way to do things. On the Eating the Big Fish side of things, it was all about how to build really strong brands, lighthouse brands, challenger brands that really sort of veered away from the status quo and attracted people towards them. And then The Pirate Inside, I think probably more so inspired me around how you're able and allowed to think differently and challenge things and be that sort of this sounds really cheesy, like sort of provocateur, right, or maverick in the business, because otherwise, what's the point of being there? There's no fun, right, if you're not able to sort of come up with your own things and try and challenge things a bit. So those two, I think, probably the ones that had the most amount of impact early on.
Amazing. And I know that Be More Pirate by Sam Conniff is an integral book to the UK Journey Further offices. So that pirate spirit kind of carries on in the new US offering as
Yeah,
well. And I love that. Would you say you're more of a physical book reader or an e-reader or audible? Is that your thing?
definitely more of a physical book reader. One, because I just quite like having them on my shelves, so like little trophies. But two, I just like the kind of tactility of them. I think if I'm gonna, and it's probably the same with podcasts a little bit. If I'm gonna stick something in my ears, it's more generally going to be music, because I like that as a form of escapism. So yeah, really sort of physical books. I've just recently renovated my record player at home. So we had this old thing sitting in the corner of the living room for ages, but it didn't have speakers. We had a bunch of old vinyl, and so I got a pair of Bluetooth speakers that I can hook up to it, sitting in the corner of our lounge now. And so actually, it's great. The evenings that I'm not putting our son to bed, I can just sit down there for sort of 45 minutes, read a book, put a record on, and just chill out. So I'm actually getting much more back into it than I was sort of even a couple of months ago.
Sounds pretty dreamy. I'm totally with you. a constant struggle between when I'm putting my headphones in, when I'm going for a walk, I want to listen to music, but there's so many podcasts out there that you feel like you should be keeping on top of them.
Yeah, I do need to make a bit more of an effort to get into the whole podcast thing. I remember Serial was the one, that was sort of served as a bit of a tipping point a few years back around Adnan. I can't remember what his surname was now, but that was quite compelling content, and I think I just need to reinvest some time in looking at what might be good ones to listen to now.
100%. And I can really recommend the Journey Further podcast if you're ever in need of a new recommendation.
That goes without saying. So yes, I'll get on the subscription list to that immediately.
Amazing. So, I mean, a theme that runs through the Journey Further podcast is that we speak to business leaders and CMOs who are on a mission to change something. I wonder if you could pick out a business leader or a CMO or a founder who you'd like to read a book from, who you'd like to know more about their career today, whose book would you commission?
I'm going to go back a bit, actually. So I think someone like a Le Corbusier or a Frank Lloyd Wright would be really interesting. There's a lot of biographies written about those guys, but as someone who had just such a singular vision about the product they wanted to create, and then was actually able to manifest that in huge buildings and sort of philosophies that really have shaped the world around us today. I'd love to understand how they were able to balance that desire to sort of create something unique and have that vision with the practical realities of actually building the stuff as well. Because I think too often you've either got the very sort of dreamy, ethereal, theoretical side of things that never really comes to life, and I think strategy can sometimes end up in that end of things. Or you've got your nuts and bolts kind of business books and how you go about getting things done. I remember reading a book called Execution, which is great in terms of putting together sort of punch lists and making sure on a daily basis you're achieving stuff. But there's not a lot of vision in there. So how, I think architecture is a really interesting one, and I sort of studied a bit of that at college. How some of these people, Zaha Hadid recently, such a sort of unique style that she really brought to everywhere. Just how they balance that business and that sort of creative aspect is really interesting for me.
I mean, on a different time, I'd love to hear your dream dinner party guest, because it sounds like you'd have a real eclectic mix going on there.
Yeah, I haven't really thought about that, but yes, I'll start drawing up a list.
Fantastic. To get back to the learning aspect of what we hold so dear at Journey Further, then it sounds like there's been a lot going on over the last few years. Is there one particular kind of learning moment that you could pick out and share with us?
I would say this probably comes across as a little maybe arrogant, I don't know, but I think you work in these big networks for a really long time, and you get to a relatively senior position and you're not learning as much as you'd like to. The bits that you do learn are generally sort of what happens when you lift up the rug and see all the kind of dodgy stuff happening underneath, bad corporate behaviors, decisions that are made from a commercial point of view as opposed to a cultural point of view. And so I think a lot of the learning over the past couple of years has been around sort of how agencies and networks aren't actually operating in their clients or their people's best interests a lot of the time. And I think that was one of the big reasons that I really wanted to make a change for myself. And this sounds now amazingly kind of sucky uppy, right? But I think a big learning moment was meeting Robin actually, and having a chat with him and Matt and Beth and the rest of the team around what Journey Further was looking to do. It was great to sort of learn and understand that there were agencies that had a bit more of vision, a bit more of a focus on culture, and were still delivering amazing work. Because I think a lot of people have lost sight of that, especially over the last couple of years working from home. Their desk never changed. It doesn't matter who they work for. Yeah, I'd say that's probably one of the biggest ones in the last sort of few months.
And I guess finally, with setting up the US offering, a new US office, and bringing Journey Further to America, why is it important for you to bring the learning and development culture along with that?
Well, I think on a very functional level, it's on a very functional level, it's a very complex marketplace over here. And I'd say there's just this huge amount of sort of data technology innovation that goes on at such a furious pace that we need to have a learning agenda in place the whole time in order to keep up and to provide that expertise that our clients are asking for more and more. I think in this marketplace, more so than a lot of others, there's been a bit of a decoupling between that strategic consultation that clients want from their agencies and the practical application of the media or the creative and the content and the production side of things. So if we're not really learning about how to be expert in both and understanding how we can deliver that on a daily basis, then we lose any kind of advantage. So for me, there's a practical side of that we've just got to be ahead of the game in terms of our knowledge and expertise. But I also think that the sort of counterpoint to that is, how do you apply that then? So learning isn't just about knowing stuff, it's about what you do with it as well. And I think we've always got to be inspiring ourselves and learning new ways to unleash that knowledge and apply it and actually get it sort of out into the world in a more innovative, creative and engaging way. So that for me is the bit that I come to work for. You know, how can you do things differently and how can you still achieve really great results and bring new people on board with you?
I mean, it sounds so exciting, and yeah, can't wait to see what that looks like. I know that you've recently purchased a number of book club previous reads. So, which are you most excited about digging into?
Crikey. I think the Simon Sinek one, Start With Why, because I love asking why. I haven't started with Start With Why, though, strangely enough. I'm also, I mean, you know, he's someone that you see a lot of on social media and LinkedIn and so on. I think he's got a big reputation that precedes him. So I'm also kind of keen to see whether or not the substance is there to go along with some of the style. So that's the one I'm probably the most interested in. Robin's warned me about Thinking Fast and Slow, told me it's a bit of a beast, so I have to get my teeth into that. But I mean, that look, the Seth Godin thing, the Purple Cow book as well, is really interesting. I think it's in line with a lot of those other books I spoke about at the beginning. You know, how you need to diverge and think differently in order to create an advantage. So that's going down pretty well at the moment.
One of the most exciting parts about running the book club is that I get to speak to people across the agency every day about these books and about how they've shaped the journey further ethos and day-to-days goings on. So this morning we had a meeting with our brand new grad schemers in the Leeds office and introducing them to how I guess the book club came about through Robin, recommending everyone to read Thinking Fast and Slow. So it's so amazing to see that learning going on at all different levels and all kind of locations around the agency. And I think that that's what makes this so special. So I'm really excited to hear how you find it. And I know there's a lot of people in the agency who would love to talk about it with you as well.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd love a conversation about it. It was one of the first things that really stood out about Journey Further to me. You know, it was just doing something differently, inspiring people to think a bit differently and engage with the brand in a way that I think a lot of other clients or sort of, just external folk wouldn't do. So yeah, it's a really great kind of initiative.
Duncan, thank you so much for your time. I look forward to chatting much more about books and learning with you in the future. But for now, thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll see you later.
See you later. Thanks very much.